about 90 students, 80 students per grade for the 13 grades, kindergarten, 1st through 12th, and then other students who may stay longer. I know that there's been several residents from Olive that have served on the school board, but I just wanted to make sure that, that you were aware that while there were other financial audits done of the district, when I interviewed for the job, one of my questions was, I need to understand exactly what's going on financially. And so the district had authorized an updated financial audit and 5-year forecast of the school district. And some of you went to see the presentation by Dr. Timms. And what the report shows is that what's going on in New York State, you know how they have the 2% tax levy cap that's going on at the state level in all forms, at the county level and at the school district level. What's happening is, while we're really in support of keeping costs down and having a tax cap, I mean, I understand the economy is really rough out there. I think many of us have had friends personally, you know, that have lost jobs, can't get jobs, taking longer time to sell houses. I've experienced that. Houses being below what they were previously assessed for. But what's happened that the state isn't telling you about, at least Governor Cuomo, as he wants to throw out all superintendents and administrators, and I know that, but is that the foundation aid from the state has been slowly, maybe not so slowly, but has been suctioned out from school districts. So while we're going for a 2% tax cap levy, in one sense, the other piece is that last year when I came in February and had to develop a budget, I was already $750,000 in the hole, just starting out, because the state had taken away that level of aid from us for this school year. This year, at the end of this year, we're going to lose $500,000 of what they call error money. It was to try to save jobs, all right? Now the state will say, well, we gave you back that money, now we're just taking it away. But they've taken it back twice and only gave it back to us once. So the reality is we're down $500,000. So when we go to build the budget, even though there's this 2% tax cap levy or levy, the reality is I'm already $500,000 in the hole without knowing what other state cuts are happening. Dr. Timms is part of this statewide financial advisory group. And what they're showing is that in the next year, not this year, but by next June, because of the structuring of things and the cuts that are going on, that they expect about 100 districts to go into the red, okay? And then the year after, they're expecting twice as many. And while the state has been used to trying to figure out how to help budgets come together by supplementing, maybe giving loans, I think Saugerties is a local example of when a district needed some support and the controller gets in your business and everything. The reality is they do not know how they're going to deal with this number of school districts going bankrupt, because it's never happened before in the state's history before. So in our own financial projection, even with, let's say everybody approves what is roughly around a 2% increase in the budget when it comes time to vote on the budget, over the course of 5 years, what's going to happen is, while we're really healthy right now and all the money, checks and balances are all in place, it's being handled well, we will have used up $14 million in reserves for the purposes of which they were not intended to be used. And then along with that, we are going to still be $7 million in the red.
Time to move.
What?
I said it's time to move.
Well, it's all across New York State, and actually the only good news in all this is we're not going to be the first to go, and we're hoping that the state realizes this and makes some major changes, but that's what's going on across the state. Now, on the weird kind of positive way, because we have the decreased enrollment, we've been able to cut staff to make the budget. And it's a mixed deal, because we hate to have anybody lose their jobs. But we're continuing to look at that, because there is a need for restructuring the district to look at how are we going to pay our bills, keep the district solvent, but with the overlying picture that we have to improve student performance. It's not just a fiscal issue, it's not just an enrollment issue, which is, by the way, a trend across New York State in rural schools. People are moving to where the jobs are. But the reality is we have a big picture of how do we improve student performance, because we know that that piece of the system is broken for us too. So the board ended up having a meeting and discussing a 4-point plan. And one of the points of the plan was communication. And that's why I'm coming out now and talking to people. The board is coming out with me because we want to tell you about what's going on in terms of performance, in terms of enrollment, and in terms of the financial concerns that we have in the district. And while we have data, there's certainly more money numbers we have to run, but we wanted to get out to people just to get to explain the problem before we start really talking about solutions and giving you proposals of how we hope to solve this and plan to solve this. Because otherwise, by the time we get all the numbers figured out, it'll be too far along in the calendar year. So this is our first step. We are collecting data. We have different things that we are collecting data on, and some of it has to do with transportation runs, reconfiguring buildings, and looking at all those things. The third area of the plan are what are some things that we want to improve on and grow in our district, because we know we have to prepare our students for a different world than the ones that we grew up in. Way more global, way more technology-based. Even to fix a car, which I really actually used to fix cars when I was younger, but I can't fix them now because you have to know how to use a computer to do some of the things on it. I can do some stuff, but not, don't test me lately, okay? So that's the piece that's going on there. And then the other, so we're saying, what are the things that we really want to explore? There's these great programs out there. We don't know if we can afford them, but some of it is we still want to investigate and figure out how can we do it, are there any grants? And then we talked about the children as being the center of a bullseye, and trying to look at how do we do cuts that least affect the children. Now that's really hard when you have decreased enrollment, because what's happened is we have 3 buildings that are K-6 buildings that right now, whatever it is, those kids are not hitting the middle school well prepared enough, so that what happens typically in middle school is kids' performance drops down. It's adolescence, you know, we all know about it, but the reality is the kids don't have enough traction in terms of how they're doing in school to then get to the middle school and continue to improve, and their scores have not been good at all. What you will see in these minutes are discussions about each of these points. What you will also see within these minutes are also a focus on what's called the Princeton Plan, and I apologize that that's the only thing that's mentioned in here. What happened is I started sharing the minutes, and there were a lot of conversations in the past about closing the schools. The board is looking at everything, but what I did share with the board a few weeks ago at a board meeting was, can we try to pull our grades together across the district? So basically a Princeton plan is, can we do like a K-1-2 school or a 3-4-5 school? We can really concentrate our energies, and in particular I was talking about having Woodstock and Phoenicia being like these anchors to the district and being very focused on early childhood learning, early childhood literacy, as well as numeric literacy and getting kids ready, and then pulling kids into an intermediate school of 3-4-5 or 4-5-6, where we can really concentrate our energy on intensively working on literacy across the curriculum and embedding the arts into the curriculum. So you'll see a large representation that way. The board is looking at that, but the board, you know, it's been very good going out to the communities, because we went to the Bennett meeting, and one of the things that came loud and clear with parents is that they want